All right, I'm tired of all this talk of injuries and who the 49ers currently don't have. I think that some time needs to be dedicated to who the 49ers currently do have and who is dominating at training camp. Las Vegas Airport, by the way, right ahead of 49ers Raiders joint practice, where we're going to get to see the players that I'm talking about. Brock Purdy being one of them. Sensational camp so far for Purdy. Looks as good as he ever has. Ricky Pearsall. Everybody wouldn't stop talking about his hamstring injury when that was what was keeping him out for a few practices. But maybe we need to dedicate a little bit more attention to how good Ricky Pearsall has looked. And then, of course, there's Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle. Both of these guys were going to be centerpieces of this offense no matter what. But now that the 49ers are a little shorthanded in the receiver room, it's very, very clear that things are going to run from Purdy through them. And you can't say that the 49ers don't have a wide receiver one on their roster when, A, they have Pearsall, and I think he's ready to graduate to that role. But when they have George Kittle on the roster, Kittle can beat defensive backs. Kittle has beaten defensive backs. Both he and Christian McCaffrey are future Hall of Famers. The 49ers will go as far as their stars take them. The 49ers formula for success in 2025 is simple, and it is rooted with their offense as the locomotive that has to pull the train. And luckily for the 49ers, even with a lot of injuries in the receiver room and in the running back room, the superstars I just listed are all available on the offensive side of the football. That they have to guide a defense that's going to be a wild card this year. Maybe the defense ends up really good. I think the chances of it being excellent out of the gate, though, are not very high. So the offense is going to have to lead the way out. And when you've got Purdy, when you've got McCaffrey, when you've got Kittle, when you've got Pearsall, when you have Trent Williams, even if other guys are hurt, that's the core of a good offense. Consider how good Brock Purdy was last year, even despite the fact that everything around him crumbled. The 49ers had the worst separation in the league, number 32. They had poor first down running. They were number 20 in first down run efficiency, and he was still the number 7 quarterback by QBR. There is a misconception that Purdy somehow regressed badly last year. His turnover-worthy play rate was actually lower in 2024. It was 3% than it was in 2023 when he was an MVP finalist. It was 3.4%. So that's a significant drop during the season, which allegedly was worse for Brock Purdy. I think the data all tells us one simple thing. The 49ers around him regressed, and they've got to make sure to pick up the regression around Purdy. And if we're going to focus specifically on the locomotive, on the offense of this team, well, they didn't have Christian McCaffrey for most of last season. They didn't have Trent Williams for a huge part of last season. They did have George Kittle, but George Kittle, he says that he was down to 215 pounds at one point last offseason. He began 2024 behind the 8 ball. George Kittle is looking as good as he's ever looked this year. So the 49ers will go as far as their stars take them. The stars have to shine for the 49ers to achieve their goals this year, to overcome a lot of the early growing pains of the roster renovation. And the best news coming so far out of training camp is that the stars have shown that they are ready to shine for the 49ers. I can't think of a better start for Purdy, for McCaffrey, for Kittle, for Trent Williams, who looks a little bit lighter, looks like he's in great shape to take care of that ankle this year. It really does look good on that front. Everything else is essentially window dressing when you look at the 49ers formula for this season. Yes, the defense is reconstructed with Robert Saleh. Yes, the defense has to grow over the course of the year. Yes, the offense has to develop better separation. And there are injuries that are impacting a lot of those things. But the regular season is still almost a month away. So the course correction for that, could just happen naturally moving forward. But even if the 49ers are a little bit shorthanded at all of those various spots, if they have their A-list foundational pillars in place, the Purdy, the McCaffrey, the Kittle, the Trent Williams, then other players around those guys, even if they're replacement players, are bound to look a whole lot better than they did last year. I think a lot of people don't grasp this about the NFL when they freak out about injuries here, injuries there. Yeah, if you lose your superstars, you're in big trouble in this league. But this is a professional sport, And the A-list players are ultimately going to be the drivers of success or the causes of failure if they're not available. Because everybody in this league, even the depth pieces that you bring in to replace some of the injured players, some of the injured B, C list players, those guys are all capable players. They're all the best players on their college teams. It's not like you're bringing in guys who can't play the sport of football. This is the best league in the world. The difference makers, though, are the superstars. And that's who the 49ers double down on financially over the course of this offseason. Anyway, today, the reason I'm so fired up is that the Raiders have superstars on their side of the ball, namely Max Crosby. Crosby's already talking about fights at this joint practice. I think Crosby seems like a great guy. I think he was talking about fighting in practice. He's coming from a very Raiders mentality, but he was talking about fighting in practice from the perspective of the 49ers are a good team, and I can't wait to go to battle with them, with all the superstars on that side, Purdy, Bosa, Christian McCaffrey, just to name a few. He's really excited to put in that kind of work, and I think the 49ers are excited to put in work in the other direction. Whereas the Denver Broncos last week, that this was the reigning number one defense in football that the 49ers faced, a team with a lot of hype. I don't think the Raiders have quite as much hype, but they do have a new coaching staff. I think that it is a brighter day here in Las Vegas with Pete Carroll at the helm. And I think there's some positive momentum around the Raiders. Plus, Max Crosby might be better than any player that the Denver Broncos put on the field last week against the 49ers in the joint practice. So this joint practice has a different flavor. It might be about 100 degrees here in Vegas. Thankfully, I'm in the air conditioning right now. Won't be in a little bit when I'm out on that field. But this joint practice has the flavor of a true superstar who can set an example, who did set an example a couple years ago when some of the 49ers young guys saw the way that he was working out before practice. Max Crosby is going to be a fun guy to go up against. Colton Miller, the newly paid tackle for the Raiders, he's going to be a fun guy for some of the 49ers edge rushers to go up against. The 49ers, I can't remember the last time, this might be the first time they've had joint practices against two different teams in training camp. So they're getting a lot of different looks. It took them a while to get acclimated to what the Broncos were running against them last week. That's why it was a rough start to practice for the 49ers, but things turned around into a much better second half. And I think that, Pete Carroll and his teams, that they're probably going to run something that's a little bit more similar to what Robert Saleh is giving, since this is all a Seattle-style kind of coaching tree. So the 49ers might be able to start this one out a little bit more quickly, but either way, they're going to be able to get some exotic looks. They're going to be able to train against the team that's not them, and it's the Raiders. Like I said in an earlier video, how can you not be romantic about football when you see the 49ers and the Raiders on the same practice field? So anyway, it's about the star power. It's about McCaffrey generating separation, not just for himself, but for everybody else. It's about George Kittle actually being strong and healthy throughout the entire offseason. I think he's ready to put up a career year if he can stay healthy. And it's about Purdy spinning the ball at a training camp level that we haven't seen before. It's about Trent Williams at a lighter weight. That's what really matters on the 49ers offense. And let's see what Purdy can do to work with that crew, because he certainly succeeded with even less last year, that number 7 QBR. We can't measure everything by team performance. If we're going to be measuring Brock Purdy's play and how effectively he can deliver here in 2025, we need to look to see what he actually did in a vacuum, as isolated as possible in 2024. And he played well. This year, I think the 49ers are much, much more prepared to have a true, effective supporting cast around their quarterback, Brock Purdy. Remember the last time that we were in Las Vegas? Trey Lance was still on the team, so he was going up against the Raiders, and so Jimmy Garoppolo was at practice as well. He was the QB for the Raiders that year. Now Jimmy's with the Rams. Looks like there's a solid chance that he's going to start, at least to begin the season, with Matthew Stafford and his back still bothering him. And Sam Darnold is in Seattle, Pete Carroll's old team. So, football's a small world, and these joint practices really help illustrate that. Over under on how many scuffles at practice today. You guys can put that in the comment section. I'm gonna set the line at 1.5. Do you think it's going to be two kind of shoving matches, scuffles, or less than that? Since we're in Vegas, we could run a friendly over-under wager. No actual money exchanged, but just along the theme of the day. All right, everybody enjoy joint practice. Hit that like button, hit the sub button. We'll talk to you soon.